The ladies of The View unveiled their new fall coffee mugs. And you know, sweeps is coming up. The new mugs are a little more risque than the ones in the past. Take a look.
You're talking about something deep,
I am talking about something deep because the new View Fall mug has just arrived.
Here it is.
And everybody in our studio audience is taking one home.
It's Tuesday, September 14th. Coming up live on The View. They're the most stimulating hot topics on TV. From why the latest scent for women may have you jumping in the sack, to the real deal behind the NFL reporter allegedly harassed in the locker room. And which world leader says women should go after rich guys like him. Plus, former British Prime Minister Tony Blair is telling you why he says it's time for a military strike against Iran. Why he calls Princess Diana a manipulator. And if he thinks Prince Charles will ever be crowned king. Then, John Ritter's widow, Amy Yasbeck, is sharing her life of love and laughter with one of TV's most beloved icons. And how his shocking sudden death saved his brother's life. All that, hot topics and more, coming up live on The View.
Welcome to The View. We're going to start off by something we think will really sort of get you guys going. An article in today's New York Times looks at a new commercial for an essential oil women can use to feel more satisfied. You know what I'm talking about. Here's a little clip of it. Go ahead.
Zestra is a scientific breakthrough. It's the only topically applied natural product, clinically proven to improve desire, arousal, and satisfaction for 70% of women.
Once it was applied, it only took, for me, it just took a minute or so, and then it started getting warm, and things started happening.
First of all,
I think this is a great day for the former Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, of Great Britain. He is sitting out there. I told him that we might be doing something like this, and he said he feels a diplomatic illness coming on. Okay, but this is serious now. First of all, I put it, I have it here.
Put it where?
Well, I carried it out, and it got all over my cards.
Cards are happy.
Did it get on your hands at all? How does it smell?
Well, it smells very pleasant.
Go apply some.
Don't be wasting it.
Okay, I'm going to waste it. I'm going to use what's in here. Don't open it.
Let me tell you what the serious part of this is. I mean, first of all, this is an oil that supposedly, if you rub it on your private parts, whatever we call them, I don't know. What do we call them? It makes you feel aroused.
There's angelica extract in it.
It's mostly botanical oils,
right.
And it's aimed supposedly at middle-aged women who are on this ad discussing how they feel about being less than amorous. But we have on different broadcasts, not on ABC, but on different broadcasts, Viagra, Cialis. We have things like if you have an erection for more than 4 hours, call your doctor.
Right. Okay, right.
But most networks, cable, Facebook will not carry this product.
They won't carry this ad?
They won't carry the ad. It's one thing. It's a double standard. If it's a man, that's okay. If it's a man, it's okay. We can discuss that. But if it's a woman who might be aroused, then we can't.
You're not allowed to talk. Well, you know what? I would tell you a very quick story about essential oils. I don't know anything about this, but you know, in the old hippie days, you remember what I'm talking about. You know, you could go buy essential oils on the corner, and you know, oils make you smell good. So you figure, okay, I'm gonna put some oil on, and I dabbed oil on in many places. One place you should not put oil
is where they're telling you to put this
is probably where they're suggesting you put this.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, I thought a non-alarm fire had broken out. Then, but wait.
I'm not sure that's fair.
Well, I don't know if that's, but I'm talking about oil
in your bathtub.
No. I'm talking about directly. I'm talking about directly. But listen, But then I tried to wipe it off with water because I figured water will do it. No one explained to me when I was a small child that water will spread oil. So now I'm on fire everywhere. And it was terrible. So be very cautious to see how your body responds to it, I guess is what I'm really saying, because you never know.
Because I just rubbed it everywhere.
Your whole body's aroused.
I put it on my hands, I put it in between my boobs.
Guys, we're losing the point. My gripe is not should you use it, shouldn't you use it, where should you use it, here or there. My gripe is why can you advertise for men for their sexual arousal, but you can't for women?
Well, because women are not supposed to be sexually aroused. Did you know that?
We are. But we want to know if it works.
We would like arousal equality.
FDA approved yet, maybe that's why.
No, you don't need an FDA. It's over the counter. It doesn't have to be FDA.
No, because traditionally we're not supposed to think of women as getting vibrators or getting something like this because
Cleopatra.
Here, I'll give you mine. It's already open.
No, I'll take it. Well, I put it on. I mean, right now, I'm feeling tingly, but I was feeling tingly when I walked out here.
Remember Cleopatra? I remember. You remember her, Barbara? You were there, yeah. She used to use olive oil as a birth control, as like a birth control device.
I didn't know that.
I know, that's how Caesar salads were born. Sorry. But no, she did because I did a study of birth control through the ages. Right. And she used to use olive oil. So this is not that new. As to put in those areas. Right. That's all I'm saying.
I'm telling you, we put bath oil in our bath.
Yes, but be careful because if you're a sensitive person and you're not sure, do a little bit first.
Use it on somebody else.
Here's an interesting
There's a fire down below.
Yeah,
that's what it means.
Now, a lesbian couple who put an ad on Craigslist for a sperm donor claimed that after the baby was born, the father began stalking them, harassing them, even wanting to take the baby back to his native Brazil, and sued for joint custody. Now, apparently, this is a growing problem. And Sherry, this really irritated you.
You know, I've been talking about what concerns me because, I've been talking about I want to have a baby and talking about I got 3 embryos and I was put on bed rest when I had Jeffrey, so I know that I couldn't carry a baby, so I was looking into surrogacy. Right. But it's this growing problem where you have someone else carry a child and you have an agreement that when they have the baby, they will turn the baby over to you. But a lot of people
Wait. They did not have an agreement. You've got to get a legal agreement.
But it still can be contested.
Well, not if it's... Anything can be contested.
Yeah. But you're saying between the woman who may carry the child for you and the donor, the sperm donor, we're entering into an area where they want a part in the life of that child.
Because I think maybe...
But who would get a sperm donor on Craigslist? You get couches over there.
Well, this particular woman... This woman decided she said she looked through her Palm Pilot and she said all of her heterosexual friends were married and the wives said no, or the girlfriend said no.
Okay.
She said a lot of her other friends were gay.
So find a straight guy that a single guy
but that's
rather.
what she said. She tried to find a straight guy that she knew.
When she went to Craigslist, I think the problem is the line is blurry. Where she was looking, Craigslist is used for a bunch of things. I mean, if you're going there to look and it's free and it doesn't cost you anything, fine. I'm just saying that in finding this person that then wanted a part in this child's life,
but you're hoping that they will hand the baby over.
Isn't that what sperm banks are for? I mean, it's anonymous.
She didn't go to a sperm bank. There's a new, very successful movie out called The Kids Are Okay.
Yes, the kids are all right.
The kids are all right. And it is this where they look for the actual father whom they knew who it was, and he becomes more and more involved with the family.
They're a gay couple.
But it is what a sperm bank is for, and it does give you, presumably, does it not, would be legal
well, that's what I thought.
But this woman said she wanted the father to be a part of it, but not as much as he
where do you draw
came in. Where do you draw the line? Are we playing
It's a nightmare
God?
for a lesbian couple. Now she's stuck with a man for the rest of her life. It's really ironic.
Wow. And there we are.
But there are so many things now. I mean, we are living in such in many ways, a dangerous new world.
Yeah.
I mean, you can find out at some point that because your sperm bank is in Oklahoma and you got it from the same sperm bank, but you live in Boston, and they meet and you're marrying your cousin. We are living in
I have a girlfriend whose father was a doctor and donated a lot of his sperm all over the tri-state area. She has brothers and sisters all over town.
So she could ostensibly marry.
Actually, I hate to tell you this, I am one of her sisters. We will be right back with more Hot Topics. I had to get out. just want you to notice I'm wearing the New York Jets because I went to the stadium last night. Thank you. You know, and the Jets are in a lot of conversation today. Mexican sports reporter Inez Sainz said that while she was at the New York Jets practice Saturday, coaches purposely overthrew footballs to get closer to her, and she received catcalls and rude comments in the locker room. She also tweeted some of the pictures of herself on the sidelines.
Oh, go on, girl.
She's got a nice butt, so what?
Well, but I think the problem was, you know, you're around a bunch of guys, and they're in this sports, you know, mentality. Jason, our researcher, said guys, when they're together and they're playing sports, they get giddy. Yeah. You know, and
what
they start.
What did they say? The same about gang rape? They get giddy when guys are together?
I'm not saying it was right what they did. I'm just saying, you know, look at me. When I saw the jeans, I went, whoa, you know.
But, you know, she said that she didn't mind what they said, that somebody else phoned in the complaint.
Well, she didn't feel in danger.
Do you think she might have put the clothes on to get that kind of attention?
This is the biggest subject, which they've had for years, and I don't know how your husband feels about it. The whole business of women reporters in the locker room.
When guys are
male reporters when a woman, when a female is in the nude, which I'm not sure I would love.
Tim told me
today.
today.
And it's been a big discussion for many years now.
He told me this morning. He said many a time I was interviewed near naked. I'm like, thanks for the info. I'm glad that people have seen you naked. He actually felt that coming from both angles. He now works for ESPN on the reporting side, and then he's an NFL analyst, and then he was also a player for almost 8 years. Right. He has. I mean, now I think he's come to the decision and understanding that you shouldn't be in a locker room necessarily if guys are undressed. He's like, if it creates a situation where harassment can occur, and by the way, legally, if she's not bothered by the calls and the cat calls and the comments, it doesn't matter. Harassment umbrella includes anyone around her who may have been offended by it.
But she bills herself as the hottest sportscaster on the air. That's what she says about herself.
Can I just make a point? This girl would not be hired if she looked like Helen Thomas, okay? No. This girl is hired because she's hot and sexy.
Wait a minute. She may also be good at what she does.
She is good at what she does.
Do you think she wants to get more attention?
You can't really blame the girl for being hired by men who want her to look like that. But she wouldn't have the job.
But do you think that she puts the clothes on because she likes the attention? She looks good.
Maybe she just likes how she feels in those clothes and is trying to do her job. The situation of her in the locker room, they need to maybe change the rules.
Let me ask a question. If you were at the WNBA, say, and you were a WNBA player, and you were walking around and you had a sizable chest, like Sherry, say Sherry's size, it'd be a little tough to play basketball, but I don't think impossible. And you're in your bra and panties while you're talking to the interviewer. If he gets aroused or says, boy, you look good, are you offended if you were standing? I mean, I'm not sure.
See, I don't think you can be offended. I think you can't be offended because I think a man is visual. So if he looks at you and they would get aroused.
Do you think women should be in male locker rooms, and do you think men reporters should be in women locker rooms?
I think they shouldn't do interviews until the jock straps are covered up and everything in there is intact. I don't think they should be doing interviews.
When is a man in a woman's locker room? Never happened.
I say men and women across the board, because here's the problem, though, and we get into like a Title IX issue, because if you say women are not allowed in the men's locker rooms, and they do not have access to information that men reporters would. So to keep things equal, let the guys get dressed, cover your goods, do the interview extra after the game.
And maybe one whistle. Maybe one wolf whistle.
But when you come into, when you
okay. One wolf whistle, and then you're okay. Because then she knows you appreciate her and she can handle it. If 65 of you are doing it, she might get a little annoyed. Now listen to this. A 25-year study of over 2,500 couples found that if the woman is the breadwinner, they are 40% more likely to split up.
Well, it makes sense, because women basically are afraid to get out of a marriage for financial reasons.
No, but that's not what they're saying.
Well, that's one part of it, though.
But what they're saying is that the man feels diminished because we traditionally, the man is the breadwinner.
The role is that the man usually makes more money.
From what I understand, it is even more prevalent in African Americans, where so many of the women do make more money than the men.
Having been married to a couple of white guys and a couple of brothers, men don't like it.
Yeah, they don't. Also, you know what, today...
It's just men don't like it.
You're right, and they don't like even more. There was was some good news on, and that the gender gap in terms of how much women and men make is closing, and that was the good news. The bad news is the reason why, as reported in, I think it was USA Today, because men are actually losing jobs faster now too. So it's going to increase the situation.
It's a hard thing when like you said, with the gender roles, when a man is used to being in that position where he's making more money, and then and being, you know, the leader of the house and the head of the house, and you got a woman who comes in making more money. It seems as if we don't need you as much.
Especially these days when most women have to work.
Or if women are tossing it in their face and using, you get into an argument, you throw it at them.
And neither one of us had money.
Yeah, but I was in this situation. Sometimes I don't think you mean to toss it in their face.
There are conversations that you can have easily and conversations that are not easy. Yeah. And money is not an easy conversation to have with a guy. And if you are making more money than he is, oftentimes women are trying to compensate for the fact that they're making more money. Now, to me, if you can support yourself, your man should be happy. He should be happy that if he has a bloody heart attack, that you can take care of business. You don't want to leave a woman who's going, oh, I don't know how.
Yeah, but a lot of women are like that. And I think a lot of men go into these relationships with issues.
Bottom line, this is a discussion, as painful as it is, that should happen before the marriage.
Yeah, but what if you didn't make more money before the marriage? Then you sometimes happens after the marriage.
It's a conversation you have to continue to have.
That's where the shared money is.
I think we should go
and make some money.
And when we come back, we're coming back with former British Prime Minister Tony Blair.
British Prime Minister Tony Blair does not shy away from any topic in his new memoir. It's called A Journey. I read it. This is an important book and an interesting book. From the war on terror to his relationship with Princess Diana and the royal family and our presidents. And yesterday, by the way, he received the 2010 Liberty Medal from President Bill Clinton. We are honored to have him with us. Please welcome former British Prime Minister Tony Blair. Did you think of leaving when you heard us?
Yeah, I just couldn't find the way out, really. It's quite a show.
It's not like Loose Women. This is a real...
No, there are days when we discuss other things, but not many.
I found it educational, actually.
What did you learn? Your wife.
All that stuff about women and oil and...
The Viagra for women, the sexual satisfaction. And
it's obviously, the trouble is, you know, as a Prime Minister, you'd lead too sheltered a life, really.
Oh, I know, yeah. But I wonder, when you were Prime Minister, your wife was a very important lawyer. She made more money than you did.
Yes, she did.
Did you mind?
No. No, I didn't, actually. I was interested in that conversation, because I think it depends what your relationship is, really. And for me, you know, if a woman goes through university, or, you know, she goes and gets a job and she's got a career, I mean, why shouldn't she do as well, if not better than the man?
Do you think it's only insecure men or men who are sexually inadequate who worry?
Oh, don't do this to him!
That's a loaded question.
Yes, I do, which is why I was never worried about it at all. Right, OK. My wife calls this programme Don't Take the Call, OK?
I want to ask you something, though. Years ago, I interviewed British Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher when she was no longer Prime Minister, and she said that there were days when she wanted to pick up the telephone and say, I'll take care of that, or she'd want to go to Downing Street. Do you have those days when you say, I should handle it, and if so, what time? When do you feel it?
You do sometimes. I mean, it's usually when there's a big crisis going on.
Yeah.
You know, because that's what you kind of think you're there for and you live for. But I'm still, you know, 2 days ago I was in Jerusalem. I'm still working on the Middle East peace process there. So you know, occasionally the phone rings. So I'm not, you know, I don't feel completely out of it, but it's not the same as when you were in office and you were right in the middle of things. But it's different. You know, the thing is that nowadays I can work on a small number of things. You know, I was thinking this when President Obama was having to deal with the oil spill and all the rest of it. You know, when you're president or prime minister, you deal with everything that comes on your desk. you know, whereas when you leave office, you've got the chance to choose your issues. You know, you decide, right, I'm going to work on this, this, and this. The rest of it you don't have to worry so much about. So it's easier in one way.
I want to tell people when they read this book, or if they look forward to reading this book, that it does, and we'll talk about it later, deal with our relationship with Iraq and Iran and very serious subjects. But there are also some human interest subjects that we found fascinating. One is that you were never quite comfortable with the Queen, and she was never quite comfortable with you.
Well, towards the end, it was a lot easier. But at the very beginning, you know, I was kind of very nervous about it, really. Because when you become British Prime Minister, because she is the head of state, right? So you have this ceremony where you go in as Prime Minister and meet her for the first time, and you have to do this ceremony called kissing hands.
What?
Kissing hands, which means you go and kiss the hands of the Queen, and after that, you are formally Prime Minister. So I went to Buckingham Palace just after we won the election, and we have elections of 4 weeks, right?
Whether we did.
So it's rather different here. And anyway, you go straight in after the election. You have no downtime before you get straight on with the job. And I was there in Buckingham Palace, and just before I went in to see the Queen, there was this very, you know, Lord Chamberlain type of guy who was sort of standing there and saying, "Now, Mr. Blair, you should just remember, when you go and kiss hands with the Queen, you don't actually kiss her hands. You brush them gently." And I was completely bemused by this. I didn't know what on earth he meant, so I was thinking, what does it mean? Anyway, as I went in, I was thinking of it so hard, I tripped on a little bit of carpet just before I got to where she was sitting, and I didn't so much brush her hands or even kiss her hands as fall on her hands. So that was my... And you know, when you're... You know, the first thing she said to me, actually, was that my first Prime Minister was Winston Churchill, and that was before you were born.
Did you see the movie The Queen? Because they sort of have that scene.
I know. No, I actually didn't
see it.
I haven't seen it, and there's a story about that, actually, which is that when the movie first came out, you have a weekly audience with the Queen, so I went and had my audience with the Queen, and she said to me, and in fact, she's a lovely and gracious lady, but she is the Queen, you know? Okay. So she sat there and she said, "I hear there is a film." I said, "Yes." "About us." I said, "Yes." She said, "I just want you to know I shan't be watching it." So I then said, "Well, no, of course, and I won't either." And so I haven't. No, I keep that. But my wife's watched it, my kids have watched it, everyone's watched it.
And she's watched it too, probably. I bet she has.
I actually really haven't, but it's partly because...
It's really good.
To keep your word, you haven't.
I haven't, no, I haven't. But then I kind of think, you know, I went through it, so I don't need to watch the movie.
Well, you know what, you were very friendly with Princess Diana before she died in 1997. And in your book, you write, "We were both in our ways manipulative people, good at grasping the feelings of others and instinctively playing on them." What did you mean by that?
I meant that she and I think, both had a sense of where people could be moved to. And, you know, some people have said to me it's a very shocking admission to say as a politician you can be manipulative. But I kind of think it's pretty obvious, actually, in politics. So what I also go on to say about her, though, is that feeling about people came from something very genuine. And I remember particularly with HIV/AIDS victims, when she first met them and talked to them. And, you know, it seems nothing to us to say this now, but when she actually held the hand of someone with HIV/AIDS, it was a breakthrough moment for the way people looked at people with HIV/AIDS, but also for the way people looked at the monarchy. And she was an extraordinary, iconic, unusual person. She was a very, very great person, actually.
I have to ask you, you used to have a weekly ritual called the Prime Minister's Questions, where you were grilled by members of, it would be Congress for us, but it's Parliament in England. And they could ask you...
Yeah.
Okay. But he used to have it, and so do you miss it? Did they ask you questions that...
Do I miss it?
Yeah.
No. No, there was nothing worse. It used to happen for half an hour every Wednesday at midday.
Right.
And even today, wherever I am in the world, at 3 minutes to 12, a chill goes down the back of my head.
Wow.
Because they were terrible. I mean, because it's not like your situation at all, where, you know, people kind of read speeches into the record.
Right.
The place is full. Everyone's shouting at you.
Right.
They're making personal remarks at you, which often isn't picked up by the sound, but, you know, they're sitting opposite you and they'll be saying things like, oh, he looks dreadful today. What's wrong with him? You know, everything like, you know, and you're trying to concentrate on answer. It was the most nerve-wracking thing I ever did.
And you were worried about us today?
It's a little different.
Well, we hope that you will stay with us because there's a good deal more personal in this book, but we also have to come back and talk about the controversy with Iraq, which you've answered 1,000 times. We're going to do it once more. We'll be right back with the Prime Minister. Stay with us.
With former British Prime Minister Tony Blair. You know, let me ask you a question. You made a very controversial decision back in the day to invade Iraq because you and President Bush said that there were weapons of mass destruction there, etc. And we then later found out there was no such thing, and yet you still defend that position. Why do you still defend it? We know it was a mistake. Well, I mean, obviously, I don't think so. I mean, the important thing is to realize that Saddam actually used chemical weapons against his own people. There were hundreds of thousands of people that died in Iraq. Now, we know from the people we sent in after the war that he still had those ambitions, both in nuclear and chemical weapons. And I took the decision really after September the 11th that we should be shoulder to shoulder with America, that this threat that we faced from this terrorism was intense and difficult and profound, and that we had, therefore, to change our attitude towards countries like Iraq, who were in breach of United Nations resolutions. So I took that decision then. It was the most difficult decision I took as a leader. And, you know, I never disrespected someone who took an opposite point of view.
Right. But you said, though, that even if you had known that there were no weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, you still would have wanted to invade. So I think that's a little hard for people to understand.
Yeah, let me explain why. Because the question is, was he a threat? You know, did he threaten our security? And when you look back at what he did, and when you analyse what he would have done had we left him there, then I believe we were justified in thinking he was a threat.
But there are others in the world like that. I mean, we could just be bombing everybody if that's the premise.
But you might want to do it with Iran.
Well, I think with Iran, frankly, I don't believe they should acquire nuclear weapons capability.
They should not.
No, and I think it would be very dangerous if they did. And I think the problem is, look, the toughest thing, because I'm out in the Middle East a lot of the time, and I'm seeing what's happening in the world, and sometimes people say to me, perfectly naturally, they say, look, you should never have bothered with Iraq, you should have concentrated on Afghanistan. And then someone else says, well, actually, it's Pakistan. And then someone else says, well, look at Iran. To which I would say you could add Yemen, Somalia. Well, you could list a whole range of countries. Now, my point is very, very simple. Unfortunately, this extremism that is based on a perversion of Islam but is there is a global phenomenon. And if you don't stand up to it and fight it...
You've talked about military action in Iran, which a lot of people in this country are very sick of. Are you saying that we should then have military action against Iran and Yemen and...
No, but what I am saying is if Iran acquires nuclear weapons capability, that will destabilise the whole of the Middle East region.
And we should invade?
And, well, I hope that we can solve this peacefully, through sanctions, through diplomacy, through putting pressure from neighbouring countries on Iran.
And
if not, I don't think you can take the military option off the table, I'm afraid.
What about in terms of, I mean, Secretary of State Hillary Clinton said, I believe it was last week, that our increased debt then poses a threat to our own national defense and security. Do you agree with that? I mean, as we're increasing debt here in our country, when you look at it and you say, okay, you increase your debt, you're not able to defend yourself and protect as we normally should.
Well, you've got to sort out, I mean, you've got the problem that we have back in the UK or countries in Europe have, and we've got to sort our deficit out. But I'm afraid the toughest thing about politics today is the decisions are there, they are difficult, and they don't come, you know, one by one. You know, in other words, you can say, look, concentrate on the economy and stop worrying about Iran. Unfortunately, both are in the in-trade.
Right. I got to ask you about, you went to Dublin to promote your book, They Wooed You. You cancelled...
some.
Okay. You cancelled an appearance in London. There are people who are still with your book. There are people who are very, very angry with you. Does it hurt you?
Yeah, sometimes it does. But in the end, you know, if you want to come in and take these positions of political leadership, you've got to be prepared to wear that criticism. And sometimes I see the criticism your politicians are subject to here. And, you know, my wife used to have a very, very simple thing, because sometimes I used to go and I'd have the papers out on the table and I'd go back home and I'd say, so unfair what these people are saying about me. And she used to say, stop whinging. It's voluntary. No one asked you to do the job. It's a privilege to do it, so get back out there and get fighting.
You've been married for 30 years to Sherry?
Yeah.
30 years.
What?
We're also surprised. There's only one of us on this program who's still married.
Oh, my goodness.
That's why she's so surprised.
Yeah, no, it's 30 years.
For good advice.
Yeah, well, I was lucky, really. And, you know, if you find someone who is a partner for life, then you're lucky.
And it hasn't been easy, you know, to be married and have to have your husband go through some of the things that you've gone through. That's not easy.
Yeah, but she's still making more money. Go ahead.
But I don't feel inadequate about it, okay?
We're very appreciative of your coming on with us. You've been a good sport, and we wish you well, especially in your Middle East discussions. We hope that it can make a difference. So our thanks to former British Prime Minister Tony Blair. We'll be right back.
Episodes, John was wearing some kind of boxer shorts and a piece of his scrotum fell out.
You know what? I thought this was a classy show.
You were wrong. And so, you know, you should be in the war.
That was the legendary, fabulous John Ritter on The View almost a year to the day before he suddenly passed away. The wife he left behind has just written a heartwarming tribute to him called Love and Laughter, John Ritter. Please welcome back Amy Yasbeck. You wrote that John was always on.
Yes.
He was
always ready.
Always
ready. And you didn't want to... You did, but you didn't want to be drawn into one of those elaborate improvs. Well, you know what it's like.
Yes.
And it would keep going, and all of a sudden you were doing and saying things in public that really shouldn't happen. You know, it was very,
You've said if there's a message in your book, it's that John always wanted to find humor in things and laughter in things.
Absolutely.
But his death was hardly that. It's been 7 years since he died, and it was very sudden.
Yeah.
I tell people what caused his death, and you say it could have been prevented.
Yes, because it was actually a misdiagnosed aortic dissection. And I know this is a very...
There was a rip. Yeah. Describe it. It was a rip in his aortic...
Right, in the aorta, not the valve, which we know all about, the aortic valve, but right coming up from it, where it goes up over that bend, inside of the aorta, sometimes the layers shear away, so when the blood is pumped, it goes like into the wrong, like a double-barrel shotgun.
But it could have been discovered.
Yes, because those are usually aneurysmal, so they get big before.
So people should be examined for this? Because
Well,
you and your children sued the hospital, and the case was settled because you felt that it should have been discovered.
Right. Well, the thing is, with an aortic dissection is you can see it coming. And the most important thing for me, my message to get out there today is, and in the book, chapter 24 is called From the Heart. Get it? From the Heart. That's what the aorta. And it's about the predisposition, the genetic predisposition is 20% higher if somebody in your family has had an aneurysm or an aortic dissection. For you, I mean, it's a huge genetic factor.
Does it show up on an EKG, that kind of thing?
EKG. An EKG is this, or do you mean an echo? You mean like an EKG? No, not really.
But
I mean, it could.
Would.
Yes, but most importantly, CAT scan, MRI.
People have routine. What is the routine thing that people get?
The routine thing is you could, when you get an echocardiogram, you could say, could you measure my aorta? Because I saw Amy Yasbeck on that thing.
Wow.
Called The View.
And there will be millions of people doing that, and it will save lives.
Well, there's something called Ritter rules now. So in my book, there are the rules, but it also is published on the Thoracic Aortic Disease Coalition.
It's a powerful message. You know, your daughter Stella, she turned 5 the day that John died. And you write about it in bits and pieces in the book. You don't go into the entire story, and it's obvious to me why.
Yeah.
But you chose specifically to keep that pretty intimate and between and for her.
Yes, certainly. Well, every time, you don't even have to say anything, and I cry just looking at you. I'm so happy you're here. I love you.
I hope not. I hope I can give you comfort.
You do. But I know, that you knew John, and I know. For Stella, this book was a love letter. From me to Stella and from John to Stella, because I tell her the stories and how to live her life with love and laughter, of course. But I wanted to put it down. Oh, I'm gonna lose it. I wanted to put it down for her to see, and I did. But the intimacy of that kind of a loss is between Stella and me, and Stella and her dad. Absolutely. So there's little moments in there, which is stuff that she knows and stuff that I've shared before, but whew, that's something.
It's for you.
It's
personal.
It's too much. And there's personal stuff in the book, but also what's important for me that in this book, I got to share what it was like to have dinner with him, or the bits that he would do, and because when he would be on Hollywood Squares, it never ended. And you know what? Even after you did Hollywood Squares and Henry was doing it, they did a thing where we were on together, and they would do the thing where they'd go behind, and they came up and they said, John, what do you like best about being on Hollywood Squares? Like the B-roll? And he said, they're going to ask me that. So you ask me. And he pulled down his pants, and he was ready for them. And he said, that you don't have to wear any pants, and by God, he wasn't. He had on some tidy whiteys, It wasn't any chance to have the Winnie the Pooh shirt and no pants look.
Yes, there was a 14-year age difference between you and John. What? You used to watch Three's Company when you were in high school.
No, I didn't.
And we got a very cute clip where he played Jack Tripper and also his twin brother Austin.
Oh God, this is my favorite. Did you know this was my? Okay,
I know.
It's like a bourbon? Oh, gee, I don't know. Oh, come on, you little twerp. Well, okay, I'll try. Thanks. All right, now let's all get comfortable. Jack? Yes, sir. I want you and your brother Austin. Right here, yeah. To sit right here on either side of me.
I tell you what, that is like looking at Stella. Yeah. Stella does all. She favors him. She looks like Jason, the fabulous Jason.
She acts like him.
Right, but she acts like John. It's so crazy.
The greatest. Listen, this is such a gift to us.
Oh, I have a good bookmark for that
We want to thank Amy Yasbeck.
Oh, she got a master look.
I figured out how this works.
Oops. Now listen, everybody's going to go home with a copy of this book, so you won't be out in the dark. So make sure you read it. Thank you so much, and we'll be right back. Pretty good show today.
Yeah, it was a very good show.
Pretty good today.
I was just saying that Tony Blair asked if we all get along. They always ask that question.
Yeah. Well, hey, take a little time to enjoy the view. Of course we all get along.
We do.